Welcome to a different episode of Clinic Success Secrets. Today, it's a bit more of an office hours exclusive. We've got the team here. We've got the client success queen, that is Jess. Jess is our client success manager at Clinic Success Partners and knows just about all there is to do with offer creation, SMS. She's amazing with clients, meta ads, like you name it. She knows her stuff. So what we're going to be doing today is doing a bit of a rapid fire Q&A on some questions that our clients have been asking us, about what's working in 2025, what are the trends, what to watch out for, the do's and don'ts. And yeah, it should be very informational. We'll cover a lot. So looking forward to it.
Informational and fun.
Yeah. So yeah, do you want to introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, so as Tomas said, I am Jessica, our client success manager. Basically, I look after all of client comms. So basically an account manager on steroid, because I design all of our campaigns with the client, of course. I help them curate their offers and find the best offer that works best for their bottom line, but also something that's going to bring people in the door. Because first and foremost, that's our main point of our biggest goal, essentially. So yeah, from there, I also liaise with our meta strategist, Connor, organize all of the creatives, help with strategy there. And then if we even go further, I can implement our lead appointment setting, lead management strategies, where I go into each clinic, figure out their operations, work with the client to understand how they book in their system, understand their software, and then we train and manage a bookings team who can book appointments directly in their clinic system. So yeah, a bit of a mouthful there, but pretty much a flexible role.
So we'll get stuck in. Here's some questions that clients have been asking us. And we'll just shoot back and forth. Again, if you're watching this, take notes. This is what's working in 2025 and beyond. We spent a lot of money testing everything so you don't have to, and just, throw something at the wall and hope something sticks. We have the data, so yeah, take some notes, and we'll jump right in. So, Jess, what are some of the biggest mistakes clinics are making in 2025 with their marketing? And we'll start off specifically by talking about ads.
Yeah.
Meta ads, yeah.
Specifically with meta ad. Oh, where do I start? Essentially, I would say not providing raw content that includes personality, smiles, some branding, and also, of course, the staff and the people inside the clinic. Because at the end of the day, when people are scrolling on social media, they want to be drawn in by real human connection. So we need to showcase, the human side of things. They want to see patients actually going through the treatment. Like, they want to see examples of the technology. They don't want to see stock images, pre-recorded, professional sort of passed down marketing collateral from the bigger companies. What they want to see, like, real world people that they can relate to themselves.
I think an important thing to remember here is, because this is a back and forth we've had so often with clients, a product, we say BTL, random example, BTL, hypothetically. They've got all the stock photos and videos, and clients are often like, why don't we just use that? But I think it's important to remember, at the end of the day, this is a marketplace and we're competing for attention, and it's a saturated market. And we're ultimately trying to capture people while they're doom scrolling on their phones, like in bed, probably, before they go to sleep, or when they're on they're waiting for something, and you need to stand out. And we've seen this again and again. The difference in how cheap we can get appointments booked when it's got personality, when it's got the practitioner's face versus something generic, it's just night and day.
Yep, 100%. And we've got to take into account the meta demographic. And yeah, like you said, these are just real people finishing work every day, scrolling maybe before bed or on their lunch break. So yeah, we've got to take into account real world people. So that's number one. Always adding a little bit of humor. also helps, I find. Not necessarily bloopers and such, which I actually had clinics do that, and that also went quite bonkers. But, again, we are medical aesthetics, and we do sometimes like to maintain that credible medical and trusting ethos. So, yeah, there are all different kind of angles you can do, and it all depends on the offer as well and who we're trying to target, how big ticket item the offer is, and, yeah, where our clinics are situated. Like, obviously, demographic makes a massive impact. And then once we consider that, we can test different copy variations that are actually pinpointed and targeted to, your specific demographic. Because treatments, for example, it's not just a one-stop shop. They can apply, they can appeal to men and women. They can appeal to women going through childbirth or recovering from childbirth. They can appeal to, say, for instance, aesthetics and what we look like. They can appeal to, muscle development, and I can go on. But everything has to be curated and designed to target the people that we want. And we will test the creatives. We will test the copy. We will find the most optimized, high engaging offer, creative and matching demographic to bring you in clients.
Henry.
So yeah.
Jess, what are some examples of treatments that are well suited for Facebook and Instagram ads?
What are some treatments that are well suited for Facebook and Instagram ads? Well, that's such a tricky question because it's quite broad. So there are actually a plethora of treatments that we can tailor to suit the meta audience. And yeah, obviously there are lots of variables, based on clinic location and who the treatment's targeting. But in saying that, I would actually curate the offer to make it like a low-hanging fruit, something flexible and accessible to a broad net of people, because the broader net we capture, then obviously the higher percentage of conversions eventually. So, for instance, we are advertising at the moment, which is going great, is your BTL's M-Sculpt technology for a couple of clinics, actually, internationally. And, you have to take into consideration when clients will see the impact or the results of the treatment. So there's no point sometimes just advertising one session if you need, a bulk or like a high number of sessions to then, see any results. So essentially with BTL, the M-Sculpt, we also don't want to advertise too high bulk ticket items because at the end of the day, that isn't attractive to everyone. And as soon as we see, say, for instance, 4 to 6 sessions, we're advertising that, and that's excess of, over $2,000. That isn't going to attract your average day-to-day person. So I know essentially we want to attract the high ticket patients, but we want to get people in the door so they can believe in your brand. They can meet you and your personality, your clinic, what else you have to offer, and they become a long-term client or a long-term patient. So what we would do is advertise something smaller and flexible. So say, for instance, one of our other clinics, which is doing great at the moment, we're pairing a free, or we actually use the term complimentary because we obviously deal with luxury medical aesthetics. So we advertise a complimentary M-Seller session. Now, M-Seller is going great and it's very, undereducated in the world, and that can appeal to both men and women. So we have designed copy for both men and women. We've designed, helped facilitate the capturing of raw content for our client to go for some humorous, like almost skits or raw content, or some credible and informative raw content. And that is just blowing up at the moment because everybody wants to trial a new technology. So as much as you can, have some resistance with offering complimentary things, to get people into the door, sometimes it's necessary. And it's not like you are, especially for a technology where you need multiple sessions, it's not like somebody's going to come in and just take advantage of your one free trial if we don't angle the offer correctly and we don't capture them and convert them in clinic, which is why in-clinic experience is so important.
I think a really important factor to remember is as you mentioned, the nature of Facebook and Instagram ads as opposed to Google. At the end of the day, the way we kind of describe it, like Facebook and Instagram is kind of like a machine gun, whereas Google is more like a sniper. You know, if someone's on Google, they want a solution right then and there.
Yeah.
So it's very targeted, but
They're
you're
searching with intent.
Exactly. And that's the important thing to remember here. It's higher intent. Exactly. You can blend these, you can retarget people on Facebook and Instagram, but it's also important to remember what you're paying for. So with Google, you pay every time someone clicks. Facebook and Instagram, you're just paying for the views, you know, the impressions. So we're casting a much wider net. And with that, there's obviously a trade-off, you know, and a lot of the pushback we often get in the short term is people wanting to retain that sort of luxury positioning. And it's obviously important to understand, you know, if you're a clinic, you've worked very hard to position yourself as the go-to expert in your space. That being said, people don't know how good you are until they've been in there. So the goal is just get them in the door. And, you know, someone I know in the space, Ricky Shockley, has this good equation that he uses, which is, you know, the more enticing the offer, the cheaper the acquisition cost. And again, full credit to Ricky Shockley here. If you're listening to this, hats off to you. But with that being said, you know, you want to make the offer enticing enough to just get them in the door. You know, with specifically here, we're talking about aesthetics, but this also speaks to, you know, cosmetic dental, regenerative medicine. It's all about relationships, and you need to kickstart that relationship one way or another. So whether you're paying for it with an enticing offer that maybe, you know, means you're charging less for that initial consultation, you're making up for it with you know, getting more people in the door. Whereas if you're making your offer, say if you're only knocking $10 off something that's worth $1,000, it's going to cost you so much more money just to get one person in the door. So there is that trade-off. And again, as you said, because it's such low intent, the likelihood of someone just splashing out their phone and spending several $1,000s off something that they just saw once while scrolling Instagram is pretty low. So I think there's, as you said, there's a lot of nuance to the industry, which again is partially why you're so great at what you do, because you know what works and what doesn't.
I try. But no, that's so true. And that all brings back to educating clients. So when we bring, you can curate as many offers with bulk sessions and your high ticket items. But so many of our clients, they don't want to have like a sales oriented approach. Everyone that I have contracted and worked for, they all have a patient first and that, medical and holistic approach. Like everybody cares about their patient first and foremost. So when I see clinics designing such high ticket offers, it's great, but keep that within the consultation. So when you find out what your patient really needs, then you have on hand all of these beautiful offers which you've already created, and that can help inform your personalized treatment plans. So yeah, it's all about education, and how we can, utilize education to our advantage is, for instance, whether it's a new technology, whether it's say for cosmetic dental where things might be quite expensive. We can create personalized ebooks for you, whether it's showcasing certain technologies, treatments, payment plans, or your branding and your offerings itself. So we can use that as a lead magnet. So for example, once, we get some raw content, have a beautiful ad up and running, we've created a nice offer, and then there's going to be an option at the bottom, click more, click on here to learn more, and they'll download your ebook and they've got all the information they need. And that automatically filters through, well, actually not automatically, but they will fill out a form, and that will filter through to our back-end sequence, where then we have another chance to capture them as, a potential long-term client.
So let's touch on that, because that's a question that a lot of clinic owners talk to me, be it on the podcast or whatever, where they've got all these elaborate funnels where they're like, okay, we'll drive traffic and then we'll do a webinar. And that obviously takes a lot of their time, preaching to the choir, because they do the exact same thing. And they're finding that in order to get patients, they physically have to spend so much time. I love that ebook strategy. That's one thing that we've obviously done very well with. But you also touched on another thing, the whole journey of the user is so important. I think where a lot of people mess up, or a lot of people's issues with medical marketing agencies in general, is they'll go over to these clinics and say, hey, we got you 300 leads last month, but we haven't made you any money. Or they're not even tracking how much money they've made. What do you think is the biggest red flag for a marketing agency? Say if a clinic wants to find a marketing agency, what do you think some of the biggest red flags are in terms of the role of the marketing? And I suppose, how would you say that at Clinic Success Partners, what we do differently?
Yeah. What we would do differently as a marketing agency, is that the question?
Yeah. So,
Our red flags that I see with other marketing agencies when they contract.
yeah, I suppose at Clinic Success Partners, what do you believe sets us apart in terms of how we integrate ourselves with the clinics, as opposed to just sending leads to people and hoping for the best?
Of course. I can already think of so many that just pop to my mind straight away. So yeah, what I've noticed, what sets us apart is the way that we don't just offer your cookie cutter approaches to clinics. We will immerse ourselves in sort of bespoke, individualized approaches and actually educate you as a clinic owner and facilitate your staff in any kind of sales training, any kind of lead management training. We go the extra mile to basically give you the tools to self-manage yourself where needed. So obviously we can do everything for you, but what is the old age saying? Teach a man how to fish, not...
Or give a man a fish he can eat for a day.
Yeah.
Teach him how to fish. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. So one of my large backgrounds other than this niche is in education and teaching. So yeah, it actually comes quite naturally to me when I run either my bookings team or I immerse myself and implement training systems within your receptionist front end staff. So you actually get some templated messages on how to reply to leads. You understand the importance of open-ended questioning. You know how to take a sales approach, but also an empathetic and, contextualized approach in the medical or cosmetic space. So there's that. There's also another difference that sets us apart is, and this is a big problem in Australia, which I'm sure it is in America too, is being so robotic and automated. We live in such a digital world that the human element and the grounded in the real world gets lost. So everything to do with our copy, our approach, our offers, they are personalized, they are human, they are like having a conversation with your potential lead, your potential new patient, because we're representing your brand with your values. We want to emulate the human element, the personality. People buy into brands for personality, not just what we're offering. Anyone can offer something. Anyone can send a text message, and once you see that, it looks automated and cold and it doesn't appeal to you. It doesn't get any emotional reaction. It doesn't ask you how your day was. Sometimes I don't even bother replying. You just put your phone down. So it's all about trying to capture high engagement but create real world connection with the leads.
I love that. And I say this you probably hear me say this like every day, but there's 4 levers we can pull to grow any business, and that's traffic, that's conversion, that's price, and that's churn. Churn in this case being, retention of the customer, in this case, patient. And where I think most agencies mess up is they purely think of the traffic. We're really good at PPC, maybe. We're really good at SEO. We're really good at Facebook ads, Instagram ads, whatever it is. And they might generate some leads, but they're not looking at the next stage of the buyer's journey, which is the intersection between the marketing and the sales. And like we see this so often, and again, everything's a dialogue. I think I always say hiring a marketing agency and refusing to communicate as a clinic owner, it's like hiring a personal trainer, not going to the gym and then wondering why you're not getting results. Like it's a two-way street, as with anything in life, any relationship. And we've had it, and there's one that comes to mind. I think you know the one where we're getting them ridiculous results with Google Ads, like way above normal. And I can talk about that. But what we found, we were getting basically calls for these guys for like $14, right? Google, high intent, for surgeries worth minimum $2,000 to $3,000. So you can imagine ridiculous return on investment. But because the software that we were using, we were able to analyze the calls, with the patients, with the leads, only to find the front desk wasn't answering half the calls. So boom, we just said to them, right, the first way you can double your return on investment is pick up the phone twice as many times. Again, that's that conversion component. You could either spend twice as much money on ads or double the conversion rate. And I think that's fairly universal. We get that with SEO, we get that with PPC. We have our own strategies for improving conversion rates on ads, which, you can talk about the tricks that we use with automations and SMS. But I think it is really, really important for clinics, if they're hiring a marketing agency, to remember, can these guys do marketing? But more importantly, how will they integrate within our business? Will they actually interact with our front desk? Will they know their names? Will they know the schedules of the front desk? What happens outside of work office hours? These are the sort of questions that really, really make the difference, because some of the biggest pain points that I hear clinics making in 2025 is, Facebook ads doesn't work, Instagram ads doesn't work. We hired an agency and they promised us 300 leads, and they'd give us a spreadsheet of leads every week. We'd call them and nobody would reply. It doesn't work. Knowing that position, between the marketing and sales, I think really is where there's great gains to be made for clinics. And that's where we can leverage AI, automation, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just wondering, do you want to add anything to that? Or
yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And it's also lessons for us, because not every clinic, especially with their front desk staff, not everyone's expected to, know the ins and outs and sales and business and tracking. They have a million things to do day to day and booking within their own softwares and their own clinic operations. And that's what I love about our agency, is that we delve in and understand the unique operations of every clinic, because every clinic is different. And how we already have templates to help track conversions. We don't have to rely on the front desk to, book using their software, looking into our software and managing the leads. We will streamline processes for them. We will give them templates to track. We can access the same spreadsheets. We can basically hold their hand, so they have data and a beautiful post-campaign report that shows their return on investment and the impact and the reach of their campaign, which is great. Another thing that you mentioned before with AI is something I'm so impressed about when starting at Clinic Success Partners, is just our innovation, like our innovative thinking with cutting edge technology. Because let's face it, AI is changing the way the world is. It's changing everything. And if we can utilize that for efficiency, which we can utilize it for quality control and auditing. It completely frees us up to basically take over the world, essentially.
Help more people.
Yeah, exactly. And not everyone is expected to know that. Even I've learned a quarter of what I knew before that I started with this agency. And I'm very impressed with, our forward thinking in that space. So the more clients we get, then the more we'll have, more streamlined processes to implement and help. You can ignore that last bit.
Help more people. I'd say help more people, help more people.
Yeah. And there was one other thing that you mentioned, and I can't remember. Can you summarize? Because there was one really important thing other than tracking and AI.
Tracking follow-ups. Converting more people to Facebook ads, Instagram ads, using technology, interacting with the front desk.
Yeah. Okay. Interacting with the front desk, training with them. I've kind of already mentioned that I can put together like lead management training and everything like that and handheld them. But I think something really interesting is, that the dance between their systems and our systems, and just basically understanding that they are like a unique operation and how we can tailor everything to that. So whatever, we can move on. But keep going.
And a quick one for you. And this is, I suppose, this is tied to how we personally run things, because at the end of the day, nobody can guarantee results. And if somebody says they can, they're straight up lying.
Yeah.
But this being said, what are some of the quickest wins, right? If a clinic wanted to generate revenue, maybe, quickly without any ad spend, what are some of the strategies that you found most successful that we can leverage to maybe even pay for the actual marketing budget itself, which is powerful, and then kickstart this flywheel? What have you seen to work?
Well, that's easy. We can utilize the low-hanging fruit. So what works without any ad spend, which can essentially generate some income to then maybe put into some ad spend, we can utilize your organic community in your database. So we can, like, one of my specialties is SMS marketing, and we can do reactivation campaigns. We can assess the objective that you want out of them, whether it's geared towards a new technology or high ticket items, or just reigniting past or dormant patients who haven't been in the clinic in a while. That we can fine tune anything with an SMS reactivation and basically make your calendar full from, I would say, almost nothing, but from the community that you worked so hard to build this entire time. So another way we can utilize your reactivation campaigns is through Google reviews, which is one really important aspect, is boosting your Google presence. That also ties in nicely with SEO as well. Yeah. So we can either put that as a campaign objective itself and run an entire campaign based on getting in Google reviews. Or what I've found works really well is we start off with, say, an open-ended offer like a $50 gift certificate. We create some terms and conditions that protect your bottom line. That also makes it enticing for you and, the treatments that you want to gear patients towards, or certain practitioners you want to fill up their calendars. Maybe there's some quiet practitioners at the moment. Otherwise, we can do a minimum spend. So that way, when clinics come in, you're not always thinking, we're losing $50, but we're only gaining, $50 to $100. Well, that's fine. We can have the perfect terms and conditions for that. And then, you're reigniting your existing community. There's also another add-on you can do, which is even better, is you're highlighting your refer a friend offer, which I'm sure you all have at some point, your referral tactics. And then you can organically grow your community and, gear offers around Mother's Day and bringing in mother daughters, or you can just, reward your long-term patients to bringing in a friend. There's all kinds of things we can do, all kinds of offers and objectives we can create. But I highly recommend looking into a database reactivation campaign, whether you've got a database of, 500 or 600 people to 5,000 people. We can drip feed it. Or more. Exactly. And we can drip feed the amount of leads we target each day, so your front desk isn't overwhelmed. And I've already clearly trained them on how to use the software, which is very user-friendly. They know how to use the text templates we create together that elicit engagement and open-ended conversation. And then we have an organizational system where they can transfer from our software to them booking straight into your calendar. So anyway, there's lots we can talk about, but I highly recommend that to bring in some quick money.
100%. And do you have any examples of a campaign like this that you've ran, perhaps even with a small list, that generated some quick money that, again, actually added the fuel to the fire, which starts to fly with, as, funds the SEO, funds the Facebook or Instagram? That come to mind.
Yes, I do have a beautiful example, actually. We have just finished We have a great US client who is very premium, has 2 locations, and one of their locations is quieter. So we decided to implement a database reactivation campaign centered around a $50 gift certificate just to purely thank their existing patients for being a part of their community and to celebrate, some of their status with being in the top 1% for Botox, for instance. And we wanted to gear everything towards injectables, but obviously wanted to appeal to everyone and capture a broader net. So we opted for the $50 gift certificate, which is open-ended, curated T's and C's together, so it protected the patient and our clinic. And yeah, on a very small list, we tested
A few hundred people, wasn't it?
it was 576. And we drip fed that out over the course of a couple of weeks. And it returned up to $30,000 after the gift certificate.
After the deduction, yeah.
Yeah. And that's fantastic. And who we wanted to target, which were the quieter practitioners' calendars, they were full. So that's
and that
a
funded
big success.
Facebook ads and Instagram ads, which allowed us to bring in new patients with they're not really out of pocket. They're in profit before they've even actually spent the money on ads. So it's a powerful combination when you can combine it properly.
Yeah, I agree. And I love getting my hands dirty and sinking my teeth into the actual designing what works best for our individual clinics. Because everybody else has different pain points and different problems and different targets. And it's just, finding out what our clinic needs and then designing the most efficient and effective reactivation campaign.
I love that. I think there's one thing I'd like to add to that, which is the funnel that I believe is performing, the workflow that I believe is working most effectively in 2025, which I see a lot of clinics perhaps missing out on because they just don't know the technology, they don't know the nuances. And I'm just going to transparently just open the doors on how we do things, which is, test a lot of creatives, like we said, something that makes sense, collects enough cash up front, but also sorts out cash flow. Again, lower ticket services or treatments, Botox, filler. Again, just because our products, BTL in particular, have been doing very well, some of those. But I think what is so important is the importance of that follow-up. So what we find is we like to drive people straight to a lead form natively within Meta, as opposed to driving to a landing page. A lot of people, they lose conversions by trying to take people off Meta's native platform. They drive them to a landing page, which might be okay from a conversion standpoint, but we're just introducing a higher likelihood of people not taking that next step. So what we tend to do is get the ads, drive it straight to a form, name, address, phone number, and then once that's in, we integrate that with our software, with our automation technology, and then boom, the people immediately, the second they fill out the form, get a text message, a conversational one, saying, "Hey, it's Jess from John Smith's clinic," or whatever, and prompting that conversation right away. So that allows us to do that, obviously. And this is, you can either do this yourself. If you're running a clinic, you can get help from us, reach out to us, ask for pointers on how to do it yourself, whatever it is. But what that allows you to do is filter after we've got their information. Whereas a lot of people, there's a trade-off here. Some people will make their forms very convoluted to try and pre-qualify them. What we find best is make sure the creative itself, and you can disagree with me here, make sure the creative itself calls out the demographic that we're trying to reach. So immediately are you a woman aged between X and Y, 20 and 35, located in Manhattan, New York, or wherever? Get their attention there, target that way, get the information, and then we can always filter further along. But the nice thing about that is once you have the phone numbers and email addresses, we're constantly building that list. And as you said, we can send out text message blasts to retarget them with SMS as well. So I think in my experience, and if you have anything you want to add to that, you might disagree, I think that is sort of the workflow that we found to be most effective recently.
Yeah, I agree. The one slight
Caveat? No?
just correction would be, it's not like we just get their phone numbers and emails and then blast them
With
with
permission,
SMS.
brother.
Yeah, there is. I just want to say there is permission.
Yeah, we do say this will be used for market. There's the disclaimers and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And so when people enter their names in there, they have high intent, which is why speed to lead is very important sometimes. So
always.
yeah, always. But this is also where I found like the concept of speed to lead, of course, but also the reality of speed to lead with the different times of these patients' lives or people's lives. It's also, I found, not always consistent. So, for instance, initially, speed to lead, they go straight into the workflow and then we, send them an offer, whether it's, oh, thank you for downloading our ebook. Because you've downloaded this, you can have $50 off if you blah, blah, blah. Or if the if the offer is about M-Sculpt, for instance, they've seen the ad, they're interested in it, and we just provide them more details and give them the opportunity to opt in and reply yes. And there's a large percentage of people who reply yes straight away or need a bit more nurturing. Sometimes people just see the ad, they fill out things, and then they're busy or they're at work or, whatever, and they don't reply straight away. And then that's how our automations become so important. It's the prompts, and every time we send them a reminder and add that tactic of scarcity, your offer is going to expire soon, or last chance, or just a friendly reminder. I don't want to miss out on this, and they'll reply. So every reminder prompt, we capture an extra percentage, which then leads us to further conversion. So yeah, speed to lead for sure. As soon as somebody replies yes, pick up the phone. Great. But again, not always the reality of things if people are working. And sometimes, the communication via text is so important. And this is why we can offer our appointment setting service as well, where we have particular hours manned by the team that we specifically train on the treatments and educate them. And their primary goal is to elicit conversation, is to ask open-ended questions, is to pick up the phone and call them and just have some form of conversation and hopefully convert.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. I think another thing as well to remember is, number one, I was having this conversation with a dental clinic owner yesterday morning. And again, he was saying, I've got this marketing agency, we're selling a high ticket treatment. I did suggest Google ads. He said he tested it, but he was adamant that Facebook and Instagram ads were the way. Again, made the suggestion, we could look at retargeting ads, separate conversation. We can talk about that in a moment. But what he said was happening was he was getting this list of leads a few times a week. He'd call them up, he'd call them once, they don't answer. His thoughts would be, I run a busy clinic, I don't have time to do this again. And unfortunately, the reality is the fortune is in the follow-up. Like, we can look at our own data. If we're getting guests for the podcast, and I'm saying this transparently, people usually reply in the 5th or the 6th email. Like, being honest. Now, again, we might use automation every now and then, but the point being is reaching out once and saying, oh, it doesn't work. You're leaving money at the table. You're burning your cash. And without a cohesive system that allows you to strategically follow up, of course, you're going to be wondering why your leads aren't working. It's because that conversion factor that we talked about, it's just not there. You've got your lists, but you're just not strategic about it. I think it's important to know as well, and this is one thing I'd say to any clinic owners, speaking to you directly, the sequencing of all of these things is so, so important. Like, knowing what to do at what step, what the tone of the first message, the tone of the second message, there's so many micro details in terms of, your every stage of the ads that, in my opinion, and obviously I'm biased here, this is where the power of working with an agency that specializes in your niche is so powerful, because they have the data set of a dozen other clients or 2 other dozen clients, instead of just trying it for the first time. So That's one thing I would say. Just the data, what gets measured gets managed. I think it's important to look at the data.
Yep. And having a nurture sequence. Definitely.
100%.
All right. I thought I'd ask a question here that we all want to know. For 2025, what SEO strategies are working at the moment?
Right. I'll tell you what doesn't work, first of all. And again, you get a lot of this with a lot of clinic owners or, some of our legacy clients, anything from e-commerce to IT, they all ask the same question, where does AI fit into all of this? At the end of the day, and I'll just do a disclaimer here for AI. All AI or artificial intelligence or a large language model does is it summarizes existing information that's provided to it. Okay. So if you're wondering what role AI has in your local SEO strategy for your clinic, here's what it is. The fundamentals are the same. That's the short version. And the reason being, and I'm not disclaiming or I'm not diminishing the role of AI. Believe me, I spent enough time nerding out about this stuff, but it's important to remember it is in any search engine or answer bot's best interest to provide you the best information possible. Otherwise, people wouldn't use it. As a friend of mine said, nobody, for example, has ever gone onto Amazon and bought the pair of shoes with the least amount of reviews. All right. So as we go into 2025 and beyond, trust factors like reviews, beyond directories, testimonials, case studies, these are all universally positive things for your clinic. I don't care if it's Google, I don't care if it's ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever it is, the information has to come from somewhere. So it's really important to get that concept understood. These are evergreen principles that we really make sure to instill with our clients. Good content, lots of positive trust factors, backlinks, whatever. And a backlink is just a link from another website. Reviews, these are not going to go because people trust people who other people trust. And that's where that interplay between SMS marketing and SEO and so on works. So number one, getting your online reputation taken care of. Backlinks, reviews, testimonials, case studies, that is here to stay in 2025. Two, I'd say one thing that's not working, it's where a lot of people waste their money and mental bandwidth, is actually blog posts. A lot of people, when they think of SEO, they're thinking blog posts. And that's because back in the day, a lot of SEOs, a lot of my friends, they'd have these big blogs and they get lots of visitors, and that's what people thought of when it came to organic traffic. However, if you think about it, if you are a local business, you are interested in getting people in the door. Now, the likelihood of somebody reading a blog post and immediately making a booking is extremely low. So that's one thing. And two, you can't really localize where the traffic's coming from. So if you have a clinic, for example, in Miami, and you write a blog post on, say, a vitamin A derivative like tretinoin, top 5 reasons why you should incorporate tretinoin into your skincare. Those visitors could be coming from Alaska or Canada or Ireland or Sydney or wherever. The likelihood of someone, and I'm sure your products are great, but someone making that trip from Alaska to Miami is probably pretty low. So we do recommend adding blog posts, but not so much for the SEO component, more so for the trust standpoint and to give you a bit of collateral for your email marketing. So that's one thing I would say that people miss out on. 3, and this is honestly the biggest issue that I see with any website, is not having dedicated pages for every treatment that you offer. So often we see a list of, Botox, filler, PRP, lasers, etc., all listed in a services page, but there's no dedicated page to each of them. So in order to rank at the top, Every treatment must have its own dedicated page with a consistent URL structure, subheading structure, FAQs, and also, this is important, to keep conversion again in mind. So we need to have lots of call to actions. We need to incorporate, a web form that ideally has automation. So when someone fills it out, they get a text message right away. Have a chat widget, maybe have pop-ups. Retarget those visitors with Facebook and Instagram. This is really what we're trying to do here. We don't want to look at one specific marketing channel as a one size fits all. When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And the biggest pet peeve that I have with digital marketers, and of any channel, and I'll say this right now, is they think their specialty is the unicorn, the silver bullet that everybody needs. And it's not one silver bullet that business needs, it's a million different silver BBs. Bit of this, bit of that, but consistently and strategically. So when you think about it, if you, for example, Jess, were to make an investment, say you were interested in, say Botox, not that you need it, you look great. But hypothetically, you're looking for a skin clinic or a bed spa, aesthetic center, whatever you want to call it. What are you going to do? Realistically, you're either going to get hit with an ad on social media or you're going to Google it. Realistically, you're going to look at the reviews. Mm-hmm. You may not pull the trigger right away. Again, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. You might click on the website.
You might shop around.
You might shop around, as you should. Do your due diligence. But you may not take action right away. So what can the clinic do to leverage this journey? As I said, when somebody arrives on the website, you maybe have a pop-up that's triggered an exit intent with an upcoming promotion. Capture that information with permission to retarget. Have a chat widget. Make it easy. Have a pixel. Have a bit of code on the website so when people leave, they're still seeing you on Facebook and Instagram and so on. Not reduce, reuse, recycle, but we don't want to reduce the traffic, but we want to reuse that traffic. If somebody arrives on your website from SEO, don't waste that effort. Make sure that people are seeing you on Instagram, on Facebook, all the different channels, because there's so many studies, I don't have the numbers right now, but people need so many more touch points before they make a purchase today. So that's a very roundabout way of me saying, what's working in SEO. Evergreen principles like trust, but also not wasting your time on too many blog posts. But 3, viewing it as a subcomponent of an entire ecosystem. An old business mentor of mine said years ago, focus on the who, not the how. If you're a builder, you shouldn't be, I have the best screwdriver in the world, I have the best hammer in the world. It's no. What is the task? Who's the person I'm trying to help? And where are the bottlenecks or constraints in their specific setup? And how can we, open those up and build a big system around it? So
absolutely. And then touching on that too, because I 100% agree, is the multiple exposures is so important. So imagine if I, visit a website and then I am scrolling later and I'm retargeted by your clinic and I'm seeing testimonials or, a specifically designed ad that shows some kind of trust and credibility and happy clients. That's already come in my subconscious again. So your brand is already ingrained in me. And the next time, I go to think about Botox and who comes to mind automatically because it's already in there is your brand. So retargeting is so important and multiple exposure touch points are the key. So like you said, looking at the whole, like a holistic approach and that ecosystem analogy, I love.
I love that. And actually, I'm going to add this, and I'm saying it's completely on the fly, but if I was to give a protocol, and again, if you're a clinic owner, do this yourself. I'm giving you a playbook on how to audit your own website for free, do it yourself, whatever it is. But most clinics have beautiful websites, but they're completely broken. And the reason is they're not remembering what is the purpose of a website. Is to make money for the business. Again, I've said this before, if we have 100 visitors a month for a website, and 1% of those people, one person out of that 100 becomes a patient. There are two ways we can double that result. Double the traffic. Again, you can probably figure out the other half, or double the conversion. So if we can turn that conversion rate from 1% to 2%, as a clinic owner, you will get a much faster return on your investment than any new ad strategy. If you think about it. Again, instead of trying to add more water to the bucket, plug up the holes in the bucket before adding it. So if I was a clinic owner and I wanted to optimize my website for conversions, what would I do? Number one, I would see if there's just enough calls to action on the website. Is there one in the what's called the hero section? The bit at the top of the website. This is called above the fold. It's when you arrive on the website and you haven't scrolled down. There should be a clear description of what you do and a clear call to action. And again, if you're wondering why it's called above the fold, this is because back in the day when there was newspapers, centuries and centuries ago, when it's folded up, that was the part above the fold. So a bit of trivia for you.
I like it.
Another thing that I would do is have some sort of chat widget, like I said, with SMS integration, so people continue the conversation. I think there's some statistics as well that 95% of website form entries never get replied to. So if you have a website form, again, make sure it has the capacity to integrate with SMS. Again, if you need any help with that, we can give you some pointers. A third one, again, you touched on this, is avoiding using stock imagery where possible. You don't look like a real business. If you do this, you're in a space where you get to work on people's health or appearance. Lean on that. Infuse your personality. Make it so that people want to work with you specifically as opposed to everybody else as much as possible. I often say, a website is like a digital billboard. Make sure the billboard looks nice, and then you can put it on the main road. All right? There's no point having a billboard in your spare bedroom. It's not going to do much there.
High traffic areas.
Exactly. High traffic. Exactly. So I would say that. And also, this is a free gem that most people won't tell you, is look at what people are doing on the website when they arrive. This is really, really important. There's two things that you can do for this. Number one, if you have Google Analytics installed on your website, which I hope you do, if not, fire whoever's doing your digital marketing because they're not tracking anything. And see, are your visitors coming from mobile or desktop? Often we find that 70% of visitors to a website are mobile. That's brand new information to the clinic owner. And then they scamper around, they open their website on their phone. Or what do you know? The website looks terrible. It's impossible for people to actually make a booking. So look at that information and adjust your style accordingly. A second really, really powerful bit of information, again, most people won't tell you this, is to analyze how people behave when they're actually on the website. So what do I mean by that? There are certain bits of free software. One example called heat map software. One is called Mouseflow. We love it at the agency. We can actually track how people are behaving on the website. So do they scroll up? Do they scroll down? Are they even clicking on the buttons?
How long are they hovering over a certain page? Because
so often we see people, and this is particularly powerful for ads as well. So you can imagine how powerful this is. Often a website's getting a load of visitors and they're wondering why they're not getting any leads. You install a piece of software like this and you see, the button is basically camouflaged in with the background. Nobody can actually find it. We have the data there. All of our calls to action are in the second half of the page, but we can see only 10% of people have actually scrolled down. So using that is insanely powerful. A lot of clinics or digital marketing providers, they will look at the visitors, the traffic, but they're not looking at the conversion. And if they're looking at the conversion, it's usually not actually using data.
Not analyzing the conversion.
Exactly.
Is there a way that we can track which funnel. You mentioned chat widgets before. You mentioned analyzing the data from the websites, and even Google as well. Is there a way that we can track where the leads are coming from, where the calls are coming from to the clinic? Like, how would we go about that?
Yes, great question. And there's a lot of different factors we look at. Number one, if you're trying to distinguish, because one of the biggest issues that we see is clinics will say we get all of our leads from Google and we're running Google ads. We think they're working. Say, okay. That's usually a bit of a red flag. So if you're a clinic and you're running ads and you say all of our results are coming from Google, we must be doing great, but you can't tell how many are actually coming from Google ads and how many are coming from SEO, you're probably wasting most of your ad budget. And this is why. Again, what gets measured gets matched. You need to be able to distinguish which calls come from organic and which calls come from PPC or Google ads. The way we can do that specifically is by having what's called a call tracking number. What this basically means is we have phone number A, right? The phone number A shows up on the website when somebody sees an ad. Okay, there's code that goes behind the background that does this. We have phone number B. The phone number B only comes up on when the website's viewed from the organic search results, not an ad. Both of these numbers will then forward to the clinic's main number. So the end outcome is the same. But what we can do, again, we can make sure all of this is HIPAA compliant and so on, is actually quantify, okay, we actually had, say, imaginary clinic owner John Smith, who was getting 100 calls every month and he was running ads. We can actually see that phone number A, the Google Ads phone number, was only actually getting 5 numbers. And 95 of the 100 calls were actually coming from SEO. So if John Smith was spending several $1,000s on Google Ads, all of a sudden he realized, oh, it was actually doing very, very little. So it's really important to segment. This is so important. You should always segment your data as much as possible. Chop it up, because that's what allows us to go very granular. Similarly, if you're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads, just saying Facebook and Instagram ads works or doesn't work isn't enough. You need to know which works and where are they working, where are they not working. So there's so many factors that we look at. Now, with chat widgets and web forms, personally, we use our own software on the background. We have our own version of it. And what we can do there is we have certain tags that come in. Whenever somebody fills out a certain entry, we can see, we had 40 people come from the chat widget. We had 30 come from the web form. We've had, 100 come from Facebook, and, whatever it is, X amount from Google Ads, X or Y amount from SEO. And that really, really allows you to make a very strategic decision, because what will often happen is you might find one channel, Facebook and Instagram, for example, it's getting a lot of leads, but the conversion rate, the sales process isn't the same. So you might find that SEO leads, which is usually the case, have the highest likelihood of turning into a booked appointment. Facebook and Instagram ads, like I said, it's a machine gun. You might get 10 times as many, but you might get maybe 10% converting. So I hope that answers. That was a very long-winded answer. Yeah.
That answers everything perfectly. And then allows us to make strategic decisions on where to allocate budget. So very good job.
Cheers.
All right. Another question, which I'm sure we all want to know, is how do we find a marketing agency that doesn't screw you over?
The way to choose a marketing agency that won't screw you over in 2025 is, I think, number one, looking at, do they specialize in your space? Do they know the nuance of what you need as a clinic owner, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all, agency that also offers, helps plumbers or helps, I don't know, gardeners or whatever, you need to know the nuance, as we mentioned, of knowing what offers convert for Facebook ads, Instagram ads, Google ads, you know, what a good website for a medical clinic looks like. And yeah, it's just knowing the industry. Secondly, I would say the biggest thing, and I hear this all the time, like multiple times a week, is a clinic that makes, or a marketing agency that makes unrealistic promises. We guarantee to fill your books up in X amount of time. You know, if they're doing that, like, they're probably doing some dodgy stuff and they're probably not thinking long term. Also, you know, are they just promising leads, or are they actually looking at the amount of money that they will generate you? It's very, very easy for people to say, we will, you know, get you 1,000x interested leads. Very easy to do that if you've got a list of 5,000 previous patients. You text 5,000 and 1 in 5 reply, but you know, it's unsustainable. So it's important to remember what kind of success are they actually, you know, suggesting? You know,
how can it be measured?
How can it be measured, and does it actually make a difference to you as a business owner? You should be aligned with your goals and theirs. If a clinic, you know, if an agency is offering you some really good deal or really expensive deal, and they're just saying we'll generate you X amount of leads per month, but they cannot answer what they will do to convert those into patients, I would say run a mile. Because they need to remember that it means they're only looking at the traffic side of things. They're not looking at the entire business as a whole. So that's one thing. So I would say, number one, are they generalists or did they know the industry? Number two, are they just looking at lead volume, or are they actually looking at revenue generated? 2 or 3? 3?
You can go 3.
3. I have a few. So 3, again, I would say, you know, again, unrealistic promises, mention that. But 4, you know, are they willing to be a bit flexible in terms of what your goals are? And again, there's an element of respect and accountability to be had here. But, you know, if you've new treatments that you're running, or you know, there's any adjustments in the business, they need to be willing to listen, and they need to be able to work with a doors open policy. They need to be able to say, okay, look, we did this last month, this worked, this didn't work. Here's what our goals are for next month, and here's how we're going to continually improve our results. Lastly, I would say, you know, how to avoid getting screwed over by an agency is, honestly, if they're just, I suppose, they're not innovating. If they're not looking at a multiple channel approach, very often what people do is they'll just run Facebook ads or Instagram ads, which is good, don't get me wrong. But you need to know, I think, when to diversify your source of leads, so you can ebb and flow as required. Like, you know, is your Google presence a constraint? Is your, you know, should you be running Google ads? Again, like we said, you know, they should know as well, is the issue the marketing or is the issue the front desk?
Yeah, once we get the leads, what now?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think understanding that whole buyer's journey and being willing to work with you, I think, is the biggest thing. That's, if I was to actually say it in one sentence, to avoid getting screwed over by a marketing agency, choose a marketing agency that is willing to really be your clinic success partner and hold your front desk's hand, show you what you need to track, and help guide the journey to make sure that the patient turns from a prospect into a long-standing patient, and understand every step, every touch point, so that your clinic can, you know, achieve the success that it deserves, and not just throw leads your way and not be able to answer when it's not working. So.
Yep, 100% agree with that. Like us.
Hypothetically.
Exactly.
Something like that. Last question, and I can answer the same one, is what trends do you see? What big trends do you see in, you know, the clinic marketing space in 2025 and beyond?
What trends?
Yeah.
When you say what trends, elaborate.
Any technologies, any types of ads that you see working, any channels, what you see continuing to work for the rest of 2025, what you think will stop working.
I mean, I know we go on about it all the time. What will stop working is just stock standard images. But yeah, the trends that I'm seeing work and really boost engagement will be, raw content with smiling people, humorous, and subtitles. We want to have subtitles. So often people scroll without sound. And that's actually, I think, we tested this on one of our clients and it boosted engagement for like 33%.
It was actually, so we actually decreased the cost by 30. So we actually got increased by 50%.
Right.
So we decreased the cost by 33 and by extension, we were able to get 50% more leads. So just a perfect example of understanding the nuance of your industry. We were able to get them 50% more appointments by just adding subtitles to that one ad.
And that's why it's even more important to be so understanding of the language used and the subtle changes in word choice. So I guess this comes in handy with my old creative and professional writing degree. But when I'm writing ads and curating offers, we are testing like 2 to 3 variations for each offer. So even changing one particular word or one particular phrase can have a big impact on who sees it and who cares about it. So yeah, I think those are the trends that I see for 2025. Do you have any that you'd like to add?
I think one thing I would add, and this is something that we're experimenting with, we're going to continue to experiment before we roll it out. Me and you've had a back and forth about this, which is the AI booking bot side of things. I think that as the technology continues to get better and better, that is definitely something that's going to be a big one. Speed to lead, you can save a fortune on your front desk. It also means you can frankly book appointments at scale because you can be doing multiple at the same time. The issue can obviously be AI can tend to do what's called hallucinate, which basically means make up things on the spot. And the ramifications can be a bit high, obviously be high if you're in a medical space. So that is the reason why we're currently a bit slow to roll it out for all of our clients. Want to test, exactly. But the written software is pretty good. Like the conversation text stuff is pretty good because people don't tend to expect an immediate reply. The bigger, I think, development that would be either late 2025 or 2026 is voice bots.
Mm-hmm.
So, virtual receptionists and so on. But again, you need to make sure that it's representing your clinic the way you want. The technology is there. It's continuing to improve. But again, it's important to remember it's a tool. It's not the full toolkit. So
a fine balance between human and machine, and I'm here for it.
Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. My background was biomedical engineering before I got into marketing. So I'll nerd out about technology, and I think it's a big opportunity, but it's important to not just view it as a shiny object. My business will be fixed when I get this virtual receptionist, and everything will be fixed. You need to remember, okay, where does this actually fit into the bigger picture? Who can help me orchestrate this entire thing? And is that even what I need to work on right now? It might help the conversions, but we're not even getting any inquiries. So again, it could help the conversions, but traffic could be your issue, or retention, or pricing. So that's a big one.
Well, that's where we come in as experts as well, is these will be methods that we will try and test and implement, and we'll be the ones to come up with the system and implement them in your clinic for you. So all you have to do is sit back and operate things as normal because we will be in charge of that.
That's the thing. You can either wing it and hope for the best, or you can talk to people that are already doing it and have tested it. So again, shameless plug, or work with somebody else. Not that I don't care, but you make your own decision. But it is important to, not just try a new strategy, make sure that whoever's doing it is also testing it. And if you're a medical professional, you spend years learning your craft, learning the industry. And people come in all the time Googling symptoms. It does take a while to get depth of knowledge, and you need to make sure, much like your patients should make sure that they're getting their treatment from a specialist, to just not rush it, to measure twice and cut once. And if you're in aesthetics, literally, not just make incisions for the sake of it. Another thing I would say, trends, I think content is going to continue to get cheaper and become more commoditized. Using AI for imagery, using AI for videos. Yeah, OpenAI have some big developments with one called Sora. It's insanely accurate. It's going to become very difficult to tell what's real and what's not. Being candid. Yeah, I don't know the societal implications of that, but that's separate.
But the business implications.
Yeah, but again,
can be utilized.
100%. But also, again, remembering, I think it's going to still be about the creative, but you need the data on what works, what doesn't work. And again, it might address a specific set, but you need to make sure the whole system operates quickly. So I think it's going to become easier and easier to get creatives. I think AI, voice agents, I think written content, frankly, obviously is becoming commoditized. That's well known. Part of the reason why I'm not bullish on blog posts for local businesses. But on the flip side, while content is becoming commoditized, like I said, there'll probably be less and less trust in the online space. I think there's going to be more and more emphasis on things that are, I'm not going to swear here, but non-BSable. And that's again what
a more skeptical audience.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's why it's so important to be omnipresent. And just, as you said, there's a line from a guy, Naval Ravikant, who says this: escape competition through authenticity. And that's what it is. Escape competition through authenticity. If you can do that, if you can get your systems, you'll be good. So if you have patients that are delighted, get their testimonials, get them to leave reviews. That sort of stuff isn't going anywhere. And
your whole industry is based around trust and credibility. So it makes sense that you have a marketing agency that follows that ethos.
Yeah, Evergreen Solutions. So that being said, we'll wrap it up. So if you're still watching, thank you. If you would like any assistance implementing this for your own clinic, you can reach out to us at clinicsuccesspartners.com. Again, conversion rate optimization. There'll be a button on the website to book a discovery call, or what we call a patient lead flow acceleration session. It's completely free, no strings attached. We'll give you a bunch of information. You can do what you want with it. Show how you can do stuff either in-house or get help. But either way, much like we said, we encourage clinics to do with their patients, is education. So we want to empower you to make the best decision possible, like I said, to help your clinic achieve the success that it deserves. So like I said, you can also get a free audit. So clinicsuccesspartners.com, and we'll chat soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.